Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Year 9 Romsey Options Information Evening. My name is Andrew Marks, Deputy Head, and I lead the team that's going to help you to choose your subjects for the next 2 years at GCSE. It's an extremely exciting and sometimes a little bit daunting time because you have so many choices. And I'm sorry that we're not able to invite you into school to talk to you in person. But I hope that the presentations that you'll see this evening, followed up with the information that you'll be provided with, will help you to make the best possible choices. This is the start of a 3-week period. So this evening, the 21st of January, is where you find out about what the curriculum will look like at Key Stage 4, and you'll get an opportunity to see and hear from some of our subject leaders about their individual option subjects. Tomorrow, you'll receive the options booklets. Now, because you're not in school, we can't do these as a hard copy, so we'll make this available to you via our website, and we'll send information out so that you can access all of that. Then from the 25th of January, you'll receive your option forms, and these will be slightly different from one person to the next, but we'll send those out to you and some explanation about how you proceed with those. And then this time next week, there is the traditional Year 9 Parents' Evening. So the difference between the two evenings is this evening is about the courses and the curriculum for Key Stage 4, and next week is all about the child. So you'll be talking to your child's teachers next Thursday, and I would encourage you to make as many appointments as possible, even if they're subjects that you're not necessarily considering. It's just good to get as many perspectives as you possibly can. And as I said, this is a 3-week period, and at the end of that 3-week period, the 11th of February, will be the deadline for the options forms to be returned. And then as soon as that happens, we'll start to look at the requests that the students have made, and we'll start to build the curriculum for next year. There is no advantage with you handing your form in before that day. Obviously, if you're absolutely sure and you want to do so a couple of days early, then that's a good thing. But it is definitely not done on a first-come, first-served basis. And we really encourage you to take as much of the 3 weeks that you need so that you're making the best possible decisions. It will be completely normal to go to bed one night to think that you've completely worked out which ones you need to do, which subjects you're going to choose, and you wake up the following morning with a completely different set of ideas. That's why we give you a few weeks to get to the bottom of this and really make good decisions, because once you've made those decisions, that's when I'll start to build the curriculum for next year. And once we've built the curriculum, it's not necessarily always possible to make changes at a later stage. Then contact between home and school as required. This is something that's in place always. So you just go via the normal school website where it says contact. You can access any member of the school team through that system. If it's about a subject request, then that will be sensible to go through the head of that particular subject. If you're not sure, then if you just put a general query in, and it will find its way to the correct person. Okay, so we'll start by looking at the Key Stage 4 curriculum for next year. So this is what you will be studying through Year 10 and 11. The core subjects are very similar to most schools. These are the subjects that everybody will study. So everyone will study English language and English literature. These are 2 separate GCSEs, and you'll end up with 2 different grades, or two grades for each of those 2 subjects. Everybody will study maths, that's a single grade, and everybody will study science, and I'll come back to science later on because how much science you study is going to be part of your options choices for the next couple of weeks. Then everybody will study short course RE, which is what you're already doing in Year 9, and that's studied through Year 9 and Year 10, and it results in a formal examination at the end of Year 10. And then in Year 11, those lessons are used for some additional time for English and for maths for everybody. And then there's still core PE in Years 10 and 11 in exactly the same way as you have PE lessons now. You can choose to do more PE in the form of GCSE PE or our Cambridge National Sport qualification. And again, I'll talk more about that later. But everybody will do some PE regardless of whether they choose either of those options. That will take up roughly half of your time during Year 10, and then the rest of the time is made up from your option choices, and you'll choose 4 further subjects from the pool of subjects, which I'll show you in a moment. Okay, things which you need to think about. We are a comprehensive school and we have 240 students in Year 9 currently. Every single one of them is different, different interests, different aptitudes, and we have to try and build a curriculum that meets the needs for every student. You as an individual student needs to work out what is it that you need from this particular set of pathways. So just because something is available doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the right thing for you, and you need to use these 3 weeks to really consider what your best choices are going to be for your future. Whatever you decide, the sound advice to everybody is always about keeping a balanced diet. There are very few courses that you absolutely have to choose. In fact, some of the courses that we offer aren't offered in other schools, so you would not be at a disadvantage when you arrive at college if you haven't studied them. But if you become too narrow too early in your education, then that can limit some of your opportunities later on. This evening, I'm just going to mention briefly the EBAC and the Best 8, just to give you some information so that you know what some of these terms are that you may have heard about in the public domain and in the media. And I'll try and give you a little bit of a flavour about what's happening in the national picture currently and what might be happening in the future as well. Start to think about what might be the requirements for various courses at college, because it's always good to have that in mind at this particular stage. It's not something you need to use too much to consider your options, but it is good to have this information. And you'll probably be aware that GCSEs have undergone a fair amount of change in the last few years, so it's important that you understand how the assessment works for the new qualifications that you'll be taking over the next 2 years. Okay, the picture that you can see on the screen at the moment just shows you the difference between your Year 9 curriculum and your Year 10 curriculum, and more importantly, how the distribution of the lessons over the 50 period 2-week cycle will look. So in Year 9, most of you are studying more or less the same as each other. So you have 6 English lessons, 6 maths lessons, 6 science lessons, and so on. You study 5 French lessons, and then when you get a little bit further down, you'll see creative arts 6 periods, and technology and your second modern foreign language for 4 periods. In Year 8, you already took part in a mini options process, so you have some idea about what this is likely to be about, where you have to make some choices. And you can see in the right-hand column there that when you get to Year 10, there is far more prescribed lesson where everybody is doing the same, and much more where you have free choice over some of the subjects that you'll be studying. So you can see you'll still have 6 English lessons and 6 maths lessons. You'll have 10 for science, and that's because science will be at least a double award, if not more. And then there will be 2 PE lessons and 2 RE lessons. And you can see what we've called a tailored curriculum here. Now, those 4 lessons each cycle in Year 10 will be a result of what you choose for your triple science or combined science. And so some people who choose triple science, those 4 lessons will be additional science lessons. If you don't choose triple science, those lessons will be for slightly different things. They might be some core IT lessons or some additional maths lessons or some additional English lessons. And that will vary from group to group according to the need of the individuals. But you can see that that will take up 30 of your 50 lessons during a cycle in Year 10. And the other 20 lessons are made up from 4 subjects with 5 lessons in each of those. And those will be your option subjects. When we move into Year 11, those option subjects will be 6 lessons per cycle. And the English and maths will increase to 7 lessons per cycle for all groups at that particular point. Okay, then on the right-hand side are the option subjects which you will be able to choose. So you can clearly see there are considerably more than 4 subjects in there. And one of the things that often causes some trouble is that students would like to study many subjects, and making your decision and whittling it down to 4 is quite a difficult decision sometimes. I've grouped these together for you into different boxes. They won't be presented like that to you on your options form, but I'm just trying to show you the groups of subject. So the top left-hand group there are our humanities subjects, so history and geography and RE, which you've been studying for 3 years already, sociology, which you haven't. And sometimes new subjects which you don't know much about can seem very exciting, which is good. this whole process should be quite exciting for you at the moment. But sociology is something that you really need to do your research about to decide whether this is the right thing for you, and not just look at it because it's new and it seems exciting. In the top right, you have the different languages that you can choose. A number of you are already studying Latin as well, which is an additional language which won't be studied during the curriculum time, and you'll still study for further subjects even if you're currently doing Latin. Computer science, business studies and ICT, again, I grouped them together. They don't come as a particular group, but it's really important that you do understand the difference between computer science and ICT, and that will all be explained to you through the course of this process as well. On the right-hand side, you can see a group of creative subjects in there. So art and music, so GCSE music and music tech. Music technology is a new course that we're offering this year. In fact, everything that's on there in red is new and we haven't offered it before. So we're just trying to expand the range of options that you have available to you to help you make those choices. But again, these will seem new and exciting, and it's really important that you do your research to make sure that these are the right courses for you. Then you have drama and dance and media, and there are two different PE qualifications. There's GCSE PE and our Cambridge National Level 2, Level 1 Sport qualification. The way that it works in PE and sport, because of the different requirements for those subjects, the student would opt for PE/sport. And then between now and the end of year 9 and the beginning of year 10, our PE department will look at each individual that's opted for that and work with them to work out which is the better of the two courses, which are they better suited to. There are certain requirements for each course. That means you need to be competing in a particular number of sports. And therefore they will guide you and advise you as to which is the better qualification for you as the individual there. And then finally, the box on the left-hand side at the bottom is design and technology. Now, it's slightly complex. There are 3 design and technology courses: graphics, timbers, and systems and control. A student is only allowed to study one of those, and that's because there is a common overlap between all of them. And in fact, one of the parts of the exam is common regardless of which of those technology options that you study. Food preparation and nutrition, even though I've grouped it together there, is not a design and technology qualification. So you can study a design and technology subject and food preparation and nutrition if you want to. You just can't study 2 design and technology subjects. And that's not just in this school, that would be true whichever school that you were in the country. And then I've just left triple science in there, but with a line through it, just to show you that for some parents who have older children who maybe went through 2 or 3 years ago, triple science was something that would have taken up one of your option spaces. We've worked hard to make sure that that isn't the case now, hence the tailored curriculum area in there. So even if you choose triple science, you will still have 4 additional option subjects. So on some of the options forms, it will ask you if you want to study triple science, but you'll then have 4 subsequent option choices to make after that. Okay, all of this information will be explained to you in the options booklet and on the options form as well. Okay, the English Baccalaureate, sometimes called the EBAC, is something which created a bit of a stir in the country a few years ago. It seems to have settled down now. It's actually a notional qualification. You don't get a piece of paper at the end that says you have it, and it really just represents a traditional set of qualifications that cover the range of traditional subjects. So to qualify for the notional qualification of EBAC, you just have to be studying English, maths, and at least 2 sciences, which means combined or triple. So everybody will meet those 3 criteria. A modern foreign language, of which Latin would count as one as well, and either history or geography. So the vast majority of our students are going to study those subjects anyway. We typically have about 70% of our current year 10 and 70% of our current year 11 studying that. That's slightly lower than the government recommendation. The government thinks that approximately 90 to 95% of students should be studying this. Our view with our students is that that is not necessarily absolutely appropriate. Every child that wants to study the EBAC is very welcome to do so, but we feel that the balance that we've struck within year 10 and 11 is actually about right for the students that we have in our school, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go through this evening's presentation. Okay, so what's new for you as in our current year 9? I mean, the flippant answer is everything and nothing. So everything's new because this is the one and only time that you're going to do this. But in reality, lots of the changes which have happened in recent years, there isn't going to be anything substantially different from last year to this year. So in that sense, there isn't very much that's new from what we're already working on with our current Key Stage 4 students. So you will be studying new GCSEs in all subjects. However, the word new is a little bit outdated now because you're actually going to be the 7th cohort going through with this new system. So these GCSEs are thoroughly embedded now. And the big change is in how you're going to be assessed. Coursework and controlled assessment is actually only available in a very small number of subjects now. And they tend to be the more practical and applied subjects, the creative subjects. For most subjects, you are going to be assessed via a series of exams. And so during the course of year 9, obviously we can't do the January science exam as we were planning, but we will do the year 9 exams in the gym and the hall for English, maths and science, and you'll sit exams in other subjects in the summer term, assuming that we're able to get back to something far more normal than we're in at the moment, which I hope that will be the case. But you will have plenty of opportunities to practice your exams and your exam technique. So, and that's one of the key reasons, because when you get to the end of year 11, we want that to be second nature for you, because it's a big way that your final grades are going to be determined. Every GCSE grade now is a number, not a letter, which I'm sure you're aware of. I'll just show you a little bit more about that in a moment. I'm going to talk to you in a moment also about what this Best 8 is all about. And it's just something for information, really, more than anything else. It isn't something that you need to worry about. But we have built within our model of options a policy that makes sure that every student will cover the whole of the requirements for the Best 8. So there isn't anything you need to worry about with regards to that. But the point score is quite important. And again, I'll come back to that a little bit later on. So I just want to show you why the grades were changed in the first place. So on the left-hand side of the screen at the moment, you can see the old grade distribution. And you'll notice that I've made the boxes slightly different sizes for different grades. And that's to represent the proportion of each grade that was typically applied to each subject when letter grades were the norm. And you'll see that grade C took up about 1/3 of all grades. And this caused the biggest problem because students tended to need a C to get to college, or sometimes C's to get particular jobs. And you can imagine that the person who's sitting at the top of a grade C, who's very nearly a grade B, is very different in their ability and their capability than somebody who's just scraped into the grade C and avoided a grade D. So one of the reasons that was changed across to numerical grades is to kind of break up that massive chunk of grade C's that used to happen every single year in every subject. The other thing which is of great concern to many people is the grades 7, 8, 9, because again, there's been a lot in the press over recent years about that. The promise that they made was that the proportion of students who would typically have got grade A star and A, which is about 20% in most subjects nationally, slightly higher in this school, and that's something obviously that we're aiming to continue, but that gets matched by the grades 7, 8 and 9. And that absolutely has happened. We've seen that in the national model over the last 5 or 6 years since this has been in place. And therefore, the number of students who achieve a grade 7 or above does match those that achieved a grade A or A star in previous times. Within there, one thing that is slightly different from what they set up to begin with, we were told that an A star would be split into grade 8 and grade 9. That actually isn't how things have worked out. Typically, about 5% of the population would have got a grade A star in the previous system. And we're seeing that about 4% typically in an exam year are getting a grade 9. So a grade 8, which is about a further 6%, actually is sitting more in the strong A and just into the A star. And therefore, it's really important. The reason why I'm showing you this is that grades 7, 8 and 9, for many, many students in our current year 9, are very achievable. And I don't want anybody to have the impression that those grades are for other people. If you work hard and you take all the advice that you're given, a good number of you, a very strong number of you, are more than capable of getting grades 7, 8 and 9 in each of your subjects over the next 2 years. Grade 5 is a very important grade as well, and you can see that it straddles a strong grade C and a weak grade B. And that grade 5 is what's called a strong GCSE pass now. And that's often seen as the minimum requirement for study onto A-level courses in general. You'll need more than that to study specific A-level courses, so things like maths and physics. You're unlikely to get onto an A-level maths or physics course unless you have a grade 7 or better, because otherwise the jump would be too great. But grade 5 is a very important grade. That is the sort of the minimum requirement to get to college for A-level courses in general. And grade 4 is also important, and you'll see that that sits in a sort of a middle or a low grade C. And grade 4 is seen as the minimum requirement that you need, particularly in English and maths, in order to qualify for college courses without needing to resit those English and math courses at college. So each of you that's watching this evening will sit somewhere on the continuum between 9 and 1. And what you've got to try and do is get the highest grades that you possibly can get. And everybody started at somewhere different when you joined in year 7. And therefore, it's about making sure that you can progress as much as possible over these 5 years and get the best possible grades that you can achieve. Grade 3 roughly equates to the old grade D, grade 2 roughly equates to grade E, and then 1 is kind of mopped up by the old grades F and G in there. Okay, just a quick recap on the Best 8 qualifications. So the Best 8 qualifications are made up from an English qualification, so you have to sit both English and English language and English literature, and then it counts as the higher of those 2 grades, and then that one is double weighted. So if you score, if your grade 7 is your better of the 2, that scores you 14 points. Then your maths grade is doubled as well, so if you've got a grade 5 in maths, then that doubles and that scores you 10 points. And then your best 3 subjects from the EBACs. Now everybody will have 3 EBAC subjects, and that will come from any of the sciences that you're studying, or computer science, or any languages, or history, or geography. So it's your best 3 of those, and those grades simply get added in to make your best 8. And then the final 3 are made up from any of the ones you haven't used so far. So they can be any remaining EBAC subjects, they can be any GCSE non-EBAC subjects, they can be any accredited courses, of which almost all of our non-GCSE courses are on the government's DFE list. So all of those will contribute there, and therefore your point score, your total point score at the end will be made up in this particular way. As I said, this is just for information. This isn't anything that you need to have any bearing of when you're making your decisions, but we just wanted to keep you as informed as possible about the decisions that are happening in this school and every other school around the country. One of the things that's important about the Best 8 is that at the moment, when you move to college, you're going to be competing against people your own age. And therefore, they'll all have the same kind of qualifications as you. So that will be relatively straightforward. However, when you're a bit older and you're applying for jobs, you might be competing for jobs against people that come from a previous time where the GCSE grades are letters. And that's going to be really difficult for employers to understand the balance between the two. So it's entirely possible that in future, some of the language that's going to be used will be about total grade point average and things like that, in a similar way that they use in the United States. And what we're trying to do here is just to make sure that all of you are future-proofed, so that when you're competing with people older than you and those that are still to come, because there may well be changes in future years as well, that you are in the best possible position that you can be when you enter the job market. Okay, science is a really important consideration for everybody. Your science teachers, your individual science teachers, will talk to you a little bit more about this as well, and this would be a good discussion to have at your parents' evening next Thursday as well, when you talk to your science teacher. So triple science, which is one of the 2 options, is made up of 3 distinct different qualifications. So there's a physics GCSE, a chemistry GCSE, and a biology GCSE. And it's quite likely that you'll have 3 different teachers if you opt for triple science, one for each of those specialisms. And you can see from the slide I showed you earlier that part of the tailored curriculum means you'll gain some additional science lessons in year 10 if this is something that you choose to study. The other option is combined science. Now, sometimes there's a bit of a myth that this isn't physics, chemistry, and biology, but it actually is. So you will still study physics, chemistry, and biology, and you'll still sit exams in physics, chemistry, and biology at the end of the 2 years. And you'll actually sit the same number of exams as the triple scientists. They'll just be a little bit less in duration, so they'll be a bit shorter in time. and the triple science whole GCSE subjects will have slightly longer exams with more content in, hence the time needed on the curriculum to study the additional content. When you get your grades in combined science, they're worth the equivalent of 2 GCSEs, and all 6 exams that you sit in science get grouped together and you come out with a single grade. So it's like I've shown you there, a 6.5, which would equate to the same as a grade 6 and a grade 5 in science, or a 4.4, which would equate to 2 grade 4s in science. So that's the difference between the two in terms of the outcomes that you get. The picture here is just designed to show you the whole diagram. Each time shows you how much you'll be studying if you're doing triple, and the yellow shows you what you will be studying if you choose combined. So there is additional, the red is the additional change between combined and science in each of those subjects. But as I've said, you'll sit the same number of exams regardless of whether you choose triple science or combined science. It's 2 for physics, 2 for chemistry, and 2 for biology. And there are advantages and disadvantages. Some of you, I think, will probably have a fairly clear idea already as to which of those options you might want to do. Clearly, if science is your thing and you're thinking of doing science A-levels at the end of your time in school when you go to college, or if you absolutely love science, then triple science will be a great option for you. You can still study science A-levels from combined science, but clearly you won't have studied as much content before you get there as you would do if you were studying triple science. If you are thinking, I'm not amazingly good at science, I don't love it completely, because I find one of the sciences quite tricky. So sometimes people maybe have a particular strength in maths and physics, but they find biology more complicated. My guidance and advice for you here would be to consider triple science, because if you take combined science, the one which is slightly weaker for you will get included into your final grade, and you'll come out with an overall grade that reflects your average ability in all 3. If you study the individual sciences and say, as I've just described, you might be good at maths and science or better in those areas than perhaps biology, you may come out with some stronger grades in physics and possibly chemistry, but a weaker grade in biology, which is fine, because if you can get that grade 7 in physics, even if you can't get one in biology, that would enable you to do a physics A-level and a maths A-level when perhaps a combined science average grade might pull you down below the level that you might need. So these are just things to think about over the next few weeks when you make your decision. The same would obviously be true if you think you might end up doing something like a PE A-level or some sort of sports and physiology A-level, where biology would be particularly useful, but perhaps you find chemistry and physics more challenging. Having those 3 distinct grades can sometimes be a real advantage. But that, again, that's something that you need to think really carefully about and get as much advice from your teachers and the leaders in science as you possibly can. Okay, just a couple of other things. As I said before, most of our applied courses, and applied means the non-GCSE courses, so they may be BTECs or Cambridge National courses. Most of those are on the government's DFE list. We run one which isn't, and that's the Level 1 construction course. It's actually not going to be included on your options form because it's not there for general just opting. It's only available for a very small number of students, and it actually would replace 2 option subjects that you would otherwise study. Its equivalent is 1 grade 1 pass at GCSE, which is an equivalent to the old FLG. And we would have to give a priority to those students who are most in need of a qualification of that type. So on some of your options forms, you'll find a box which asks you if you wish to be considered for this particular course. You can tick that box. It doesn't mean you definitely get a place on it, but it means that we'll then look at it and talk to Mrs. Thomas and Mr. Hampton, and we would work out who would be the best suited for the limited number of places that we have on that particular course. I'm just flagging that up now. It won't be on your options form in the common list of subjects there for everybody else. Okay, just a few things to consider then when you're applying for college. Every subject is now 1 grade. It's been that way for a number of years now, and it's a good thing. If we went back 5 or 10 years, you might find certain qualifications which had the equivalence of 4 or 5 GCSEs. This gave people a slightly false impression of how many qualifications they had. So every course that you study now will result in 1 GCSE. I guess the only exception would be combined science, as I've just explained, but that will be a double award, but you are sitting the equivalent of 2 subjects there, definitely. English language is 1 subject, English literature is 1 subject, and if you choose an applied course now, that's counted as 1 grade as well. As I've said before, everything will have an examined element. So even the BTEC courses, the Cambridge National courses that we run, there is an exam element to each course that you will study as well. I said a little bit earlier about the college requirements. So it used to be 5 A-star to Cs, including English and Maths, was the minimum requirement to get to college and to not need to be resitting English or Maths when you get there. It's now grades 9 to 4. That would be seen as the equivalent pass rate here. As I've also said, lower than a grade 4 will require you to resit the English language and or the Maths, depending on whether you need to do both or not. And you have to do that. The colleges won't allow you not to do that because it's a funding requirement for your place on their course. Grade 5, strong pass, as I've said before. Okay, just a little bit of an information now for the how we group you for your core subjects in Year 10. Do you know at the moment you're in Band A or Band B, and those bands are completely parallel. So if you're in 9A3 for English, that is the same as 9B3 for English this year. When we get to Years 10 and 11, it's slightly different. Because different people will opt for different things, we group you in a different way. Now, the only reason why we have bands for core subjects is because you can see there are 10 classes there, and we don't have 10 English teachers and 10 maths teachers and 10 rooms to teach you all at one go. And in fact, even if we could, we might not want to do that because we have certain teachers who specialize in certain areas and we might want them to have more than one class, and this allows us to do that. Now, this model here shows how we think we're probably going to set up your bands for next year. There'll be 3 bands. We're expecting to have about 4 classes in Band T and 3 in Band R and 3 in Band S. I'll explain in a moment what that means. As it turned out with the current Year 10s, when they were going through this process, because of how they opted, we've ended up with a slightly different model. We actually have 5 sets in Band T each time, 3 in Band R and 2 in Band S. So we will be flexible depending on how you opt as to how we set up the core curriculum for next year as well. And then just to give you some answers to frequently asked questions, because these are probably things that you will be thinking about and wanting to know the answers to. There are, in 3 different subjects, there are higher tier and foundation tier GCSE exams. And those are languages, science, and maths. Other than that, all other subjects only have a single tier of entry, and that means every single person will sit the same exam paper in those subjects. So in maths, science, and languages, then there will be decisions to be made towards the end of Year 11 about whether each student will sit the higher papers or the foundation papers. And regardless of which band you're in for your core subjects, you can sit the higher tier exams in any of those bands. We look at the individual subject, not the class that you're in. As I've said before, everybody will study English language and English literature, regardless of the band or the class that you're in. And then important things here. So Band T, every student in Band T will study the full EBacc, and your options form will reflect that. So it will ask you whether you wanted to take triple science or combined science. It will ask you which language you'll be studying. It will ask you which of history or geography you'll be studying. And then it will ask you which of the 2 further choices beyond that you wish to study. Students in bands R and S will get a slightly different options form. Every student in band R and S is entitled to study the full EBacc if they wish to. Everybody will study options which give them a best 8. So your options form will look like a slightly different format. It will ask you which of the languages or history or geography you would like to study, and then it will ask you for 3 further choices beyond that as well. Sometimes people are a little confused. They say, if I've chosen history, can I also do geography? And the answer is yes. And in the same way, if you choose Spanish as your first language and you want to study French as well, that's possible as well. That will just take up one of your later spaces in there. So any combination from that point of view is possible. Triple science will be studied by students in Band T. This helps us to arrange the groupings for the tailored curriculum so that everybody that needs the additional time can have it. And those that don't need it, we can arrange different things at that particular point, hence the need for the different bands in here. And just so that you know how the bands are being formulated, they are provisionally being put together at the moment by the heads of the core subjects. So each student will receive an options form indicating which band they're likely to be placed in, but that is not a hard and fast rule. We've got the rest of Year 9 for all of the lessons and the home learnings, and the exams which will take place both as part of our regular assessment and towards the end of the year. and then a final decision on this is made in July. And then one really important thing, if you are provisionally in a band at the moment and you would like to move to a different band, then on your option form, there is a box to tick to say, I would like to be considered to move to a different band. If you do move to a different band, clearly you have to meet the requirements in your options for the band that you are looking to move into. But you are able to indicate that preference and say, no, I would like to move to a different band, and here are the reasons why I would like to do that. So that will be on your options form. Okay, I hope that's helped to alleviate some of the questions you may have already. Then just to finish up really, we're starting to look at the options subject. So your options form will look like this. I showed them to you earlier in different blocks to show you some groupings. Beyond the requirements that I've already talked about on the options form, this is how the rest will be presented. And once you have all chosen from there, then I will try and build the curriculum to match the requests that you've all made. Again, just the only thing to take note of there is that the design and technology, you can choose one of those three if you wish to. You may not choose timbers and graphics. That's not an allowable qualification anywhere in the country. But other than that, then pretty much everything else is a free choice. You need to be aware of things like the differences between computer science and ICT. Several of the subjects are new to you there, so sociology, business studies, music, tech. They are likely to seem very new, very exciting. They may well be perfect for you, but they might not be. And it's really important that you do your research before making that choice. And again, just some questions which often get asked at this point. So will all courses run? I don't know the answer to that. Until you show me what you want to study, I don't know which subjects we need to build into the curriculum and therefore which combinations of subjects we need to make possible. So I will do my best to make sure that every combination is possible, but I know that that probably isn't going to be the case. If you don't hear from me, that's good news. So if you don't hear from me, it's a pretty good assumption that things are going well for the subjects that you've chosen from. If I have to contact you, I will contact should there be a problem with your individual choices that you've made. As I've said, you can choose 2 languages. You can choose history and geography. You can choose 3 languages if you want to. You need to be a little bit careful about the broad and balance to try and keep as many different types of subjects in your selections as possible. But if that's your thing and your passion, then yes, you can do that. And Latin, a number of you are already studying Latin in year 9, and you'll continue to study that through year 10 and sit your GCSE at the end of year 10. Latin can be your language for the EBacc if that's what you want it to be. And again, you're able to write that onto your options form if you are part of the group with Dr. Lee currently. And then just a quick overview of an observation that we made. We actually made it in the 2018 GCSEs, but it was also very true in the 2019 GCSEs. Clearly there weren't 2020 GCSEs, and it's now looking like there won't be 2021 GCSEs either. But something that we noticed is that pupils in Romsey School who studied a language at GCSE achieved significantly stronger results across all their subjects than pupils from the same starting points who had not studied a language. Now, it's really important to understand that's about progress. That's not about whether just all of the strongest students studied language or not. So from any given starting point, we noticed that the students who are choosing to study languages are making stronger progress across all of their subjects. Now, that's a correlation. It does not necessarily mean it's a causation based on your language choice. It's much more likely to be somebody that actually is choosing a language is probably pushing themselves quite hard and probably is getting everything they can out of school, is probably well supported at home, and is probably taking part in lots of extracurricular activities when we're able to do so. And it's the whole package. They're probably going above and beyond with their homework and so on as well. So it's just really think about, certainly the message that Mr. Hampton was very keen to give you as well. You get one go at this. And in the last couple of years where we've really encouraged the students at this stage of their careers to really aim high and think a lot of themselves and really push themselves, they've done this and they've really bought into it. We typically have at the moment about 70 to 75% of the year group studying a language in year 10 and also the same picture in year 11. And there's absolutely no reason. Year 9 is exactly as equal in terms of prior attainment and ability as both of those cohorts. They're very strong cohorts, and so are you. So we expect you to have exactly the same aspirations and high expectations of yourself as every other cohort that we have in the school. Okay, just a couple of minor things now to be aware of. Computer science and ICT are very different things, and it's really important that if you just like your phone and you're quite interested in sort of the media side of things on your phone, and you want to know about using IT and creating with IT, then our ICT iMedia course is probably quite useful for you, quite interesting for you. Do not choose computer science if you're one of those people, because computer science is coding and programming. So if you are somebody who likes to know how things work and likes to get on the inside of computers, and you want to know how binary is used to make things work, and you are constantly looking at how coding works, computer science is a perfect course for you. But they're very different from each other, so please make sure you do your research before you make that choice. Business studies also. When you think about business studies before you have any information, you may have a picture in your head that you might find GCSE business studies is slightly different from. So I would encourage you at the end of this presentation to really listen to Mr. Bowles' presentation on business studies, so that you really know what you're opting for. It's very much about understanding the world of business, but focused around small business in particular, and therefore lots of the case studies that you'll be studying are based in that particular way. Sociology is another subject that's new to you and will seem exciting, but you need to be aware that it pretty much has the highest literacy content of any GCSE. So you'll be doing more reading, more writing, more essay writing in sociology than almost any other subject. History is probably on a par there, but sociology may have even more than that. And then the final one, just to be aware of, art. There'll be lots of you that love art and are thinking of doing it, and that's great, and that probably for most of you it's going to be an excellent choice. But you need to be aware that GCSE art comes with the criteria of the specification of the exam as well. And so therefore your teachers will be making sure that they are training you for the criteria as well as developing your skills in art. And art is probably the one subject that requires the most additional time beyond the regular lessons to be in school and to be back after school and so on, to make sure that you are covering everything that you need to do. So if you are opting for art, just make sure that you are aware of what you're signing up for and committing to in that particular course. Right, how not to choose a subject. Please be an individual. You get one go at this and really choose the right things for you. Don't just follow what your friends are doing. If your friends and you are not a good combination, then we'll be separating you next year anyway into different groups. So please be yourself and choose what's right for you. All the GCSEs will sound good. When my colleagues are showing you their presentations for the different subjects, they love their subjects. They're going to show you the passion of that, and they're going to encourage you to take their subjects. But really do your research, please, for that. It's an easy subject. I mean, you'll quickly find out that there is no such thing at GCSE, or even the applied courses, which are not GCSEs. There is no easy subject. So you need to do your research, and you need to commit 100% to whichever subjects that it is that you choose to study. And you should never choose a subject based on the teacher, please. In almost every subject, you won't know which teacher you're going to have next year. So you need to choose the subject that's right for you, rather than whether you do or don't like the current teacher that you have for that particular subject. And then there's going to be lots of different factors that will affect your success over the next couple of years. Ages 14 to 16, you're going to undergo huge changes. But despite that, the two things that we make the biggest fuss about as a school, your attitude and your attendance, will have the biggest bearing. It's amazing each year when I look at, if I correlate the attitude levels of particular students with their final outcomes and the progress they make, it vastly outweighs any correlation that I see between their prior attainment ability and the final grades as well. So your attitude and your attendance, if you're not here or not engaged remotely at the moment, it's very difficult to make progress. If you get those two things right, everything else will fall into place and you will be very successful. So how to choose the next steps. Here's the final thing. Please use the next 3 weeks and beyond to talk to your teachers and make sure that you get really good advice and choose the right things. It's definitely a process between the student, the parents and carers, and the school. So please have that open dialogue. When you get the options booklet, it's a long document, but please take time to really look at the detail in there. Our careers advisor, Jane Phillips, will be available. You can, as I showed you how to contact school before, She would be delighted to talk to pupils and parents. She's happy to set up online meetings at the moment to talk to you. She works from Monday to Thursday each week, and she's employed within the school. So please take advantage of that opportunity as well. It isn't available in every school, and it isn't just for Year 11 students. So Year 9 students and their parents are very welcome to use that resource as well. And then some good maxims. If you need the subject because you know where you're likely to go for your career, and you already know you're good at something and you enjoy it, that's going to be a pretty good guide as to whether you should choose that subject or not. Okay, I appreciate this has been a lot of information, probably too much information for some and still not enough for others. The video is now going to take you to a series of links where you can find some more information about individual subjects. And we're going to leave this video up here so that you can access this throughout the whole of the 3-week period. So if you want to go on this evening and get some further information and advice and start to talk about that at home, then that's a really good thing to do. If you want to come back to it tomorrow or the next day, then all of these links will still be here. And if you have to come through this video again, you can just scroll straight to the end and pick up the final links at the end of this video, which will help you to go to the individual subjects from this point onwards. Okay, thank you very much for your time this evening, and I hope that you really enjoy the challenge of the next few weeks and making your decisions. Okay, thank you.